Alright, the pressure's been on for me to continue doing these videos, mainly from my son, Mason. So here we go. This one's dedicated to you, buddy. Thanks for being my motivation and my biggest fan. So, I feel necessary to share a bit of background here, just to understand where I'm coming from before I start waxing poetically and sharing my philosophies and community. But my family moved here kind of without knowing exactly what we were doing. But it felt right. And then something changed. Something happened where we started tapping roots. And that had never happened to us before. Came from a lot of different places before we ended up here. And this is as long as we've stayed in one spot our entire lives. As far as our son is concerned, this is really the only place he's known. More than half his life he's been here. And we have an obligation to him to keep that going and keeping our roots sinking in to some place. And this place, as far as we've come to understand, is I guess what I'm trying to say is we feel lucky, obviously. Look around, we have a lot to give, to share with each other, and to share with the world. A lot of communities can't say that people from all over the world, from all the continents, they come here to share in our gifts. And there's an obligation that comes with that, an obligation to our visitors, but also an obligation as stewards of the land, as keepers of this place. And I think that's been understood long before I came here. And it's one of the things that I learned to respect about this place and the people who've much deeper set roots than mine. So this has led me and my family to think how we can work together to bring forth a preferred future for all of us in this community, because one of the things I've come to feel since actually getting to dig my roots into a place is that your roots start touching the roots of your neighbors, and you realize that we are all connected, and it matters how we work together and how we plan together for our shared futures, for our children and for the aging rest of us through all the stages of our life. And I can only imagine we're going to keep welcoming newcomers who want to be a part of what we have going on. So one of the things I'm hoping to do is continue to have conversations where we learn how we can build wealth together. I think the quality of the community which you live in is the true measure of wealth. And by quality, I mean, are we enabling health and security for the people who live here? Are we being stewards of our local ecology and the gifts that come with this special place that we live? Are we shaping our economy from within? Are we contributing to food security? Are we being aware and involved in raising future generations and keeping them wanting to stay here? Are we giving them reasons to want to stay here? Are we co-creating places of care for our aging population and those who need care? Are we working as a community to implement that? Are we letting people from the outside flail as they try to... Anyways, we'll talk about that at another time. Do we have connector networks? Are we connected in functional, useful ways so that we can do our best to cooperate and share the wealth of our community amongst ourselves? Are we developing and fostering mutually reciprocal, inspirational relationships? When we look out into our community, whether it's on the social medias or just walking down the street, driving to and from, are we inspired? And are we trying our best to inspire others as they do the same? How could we do something? How could we do all of that? I think the way to do all of that is to have faith in humanity, because the further outside of our community we look, the easier it is to see the failures of humanity. But every time I shrink my gaze and look around here, I see that we're doing a pretty good job of it. And that gives me faith. I have faith in myself and my own community assets and the potential of that great privilege. Lately, I've thought a lot about identity and how important it is for a human to feel like they belong. And, you know, the worst punishment you can give someone in prison, by law at least here in most of North America, is solitary confinement. I know how important it is to identify, but I think it's also important to give yourself some boundaries and even some illusion when it comes to self-identifying, because it gets pretty slippery on certain ends of the spectrum when you break it down. Since I'm saying so much about myself, I guess it's worth explaining that I am a student of the humanities, to put it plainly. I'm interested in existence in general, but the human experience is the only one that I can claim to have at least a subjective grasp on. But I even think when identifying, you can see yourself outside of this human body and understand that we're citizens, we're community members on a grand scale. The kind of community I've been talking about in this video up to this point is where you live, where you can reach, where you travel through and by, and those people that you need the most, and they need you. On a day-to-day basis, my neighbors and I here locally share a stake in the game and an obligation to work together. But let's talk about identity. I have a little time here. So we're all kind of forced to identify or else. And one of the cliches is to just say we're all one. It's all love, baby, you know? We're just a tendril of the greater whole, a soul, if you believe in that kind of thing. Like at the center of our being, there's a pinprick in space and time that expands inward into a whole nother dimension where we're all connected and attached. We're just energy enmeshed in the cosmic fabric of time and space. A manifestation of the One, a sensory extension of the divine essence, one among the collective. Just a facet of all that exists, made to perceive itself as separate from the all. And once you get over all this gobbledygook, you realize you're an individual and you have a job to do. We can still identify, we can still agree on some things that we share, like community, but also things that are sacred to us. After all, we're offsprings of the sun. It's the well of our vitality. We're breathers of air. We depend on the essence of water. We're somebody's children. We're all eager students and practitioners, whether we like to believe it or not. As long as we're doing and being, we're learning and experiencing and doing. We pursue pleasure and evade pain because we're creatures subject to sensations. But we also create, we instrument. We are driving forces and participants. We had to be thought of. We had to be counted, labeled, and named. Raised, shown, taught, groomed, influenced, persuaded, identified, branded, paraded, segregated, socialized, nationalized, institutionalized, governed, and controlled. But even with all that draped over top of us, the things that unite us and we share, and the things that divide us and categorize us as different as others, at least the ones that live near me, I can say we share an identity that really does matter and is worth subscribing to and taking part in, and standing up for, till death do us part, and that is community. Identity matters. You can get lost in the complexity of what makes us individuals, but at the end of the day, in order to survive and thrive, we need each other. We need to identify as a collective, and we need to feel like we belong and we have purpose and that we can. That's it, we can. So, I'm here for it. And I'm very grateful that I am here. Society, especially the ones my family and I left, they're currently preconditioned to be disconnected, ideologically divided, alone, afraid, reliant on institutions, to feel vulnerable. We left that to come here, to escape that. We didn't even know exactly what it was that was being sold to us. It wasn't until arriving here and being affected by the medicine of this place that we realized the types of traps we had fallen into. And we also realized that we can remedy these afflictions and heal ourselves and work together to shake them off locally in a place like this. We really do believe that we can live a different way here, a way that's not possible for other people out there in the rat race. And for that, we're grateful. Talk to you next time.